Welcome to Life in the Leadership Lane. I'm your host, Bruce Waller, where I get to talk to leaders that are making a difference in the workplace and in our community. What did they do to get started and what are they doing to stay there? And today, oh my goodness, I have a very special guest. We're getting to talk to Holly Novak. Holly is the head of HR operations at Jack Henry and Associates. She is also certified with her SPHR, her HR certification, and her MBA. And she is the current 2021 DallasHR president. And Holly, I'm so excited to have you on the show.
I'm so excited to be here. It's nice to share a stage with so many amazing HR rock stars that you've had. So
we have so many mutual friends that have been on the show. Oh my gosh. And I've had you on the list to have you on for so long. You know, I was reflecting back the first time we met. You know, we've known each other for a long time. But was it back? I was president in 2012, and you, I believe, were leading a chapter in the West. I might have been in Amarillo, and we met at TallasHR.
Yep, we did. Yeah. So I was the president of the Amarillo, which is Panhandle chapter. And yeah, we met at TallasHR.
Yeah. And here we are today serving TallasHR together once again. So, oh man, I've always admired your leadership and your approach. And we're going to talk leadership today. We're going to talk leadership development. We're going to talk about a whole lot of things. And so I would love for you to start by just sharing a little bit about your organization, Jack Henry and Associates, and how you serve your customers.
Sure. So Jack Henry is a leading provider of technology solutions, primarily in the financial services industry. So we serve about 8,500 banks and credit unions, and we have about 7,000 associates. And so we have an amazing culture, amazing service culture, and our philosophy, which I love. One of the reasons I came to work here is do the right thing, do whatever it takes, and have fun. So it's a great company.
Do the right thing, do whatever it takes to have fun. Oh man, I love that too. That's fantastic. That's energizing.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Well, I love that. Thank you for sharing that. And I want to really kick this off. You know, we've known each other for a long time, but I would love for you to share the Holly Novak story. Like, where did you grow up and how in the world did you get into HR?
Yeah, sure. So I'm a West Texas girl. Born in Lubbock. It's funny, I listened to Justin Dorsey's podcast the other day. Born in Lubbock, we both went to Texas Tech, so fun time there. But I grew up in a super small town in the Texas Panhandle named McLean. There's like 800 people there, so very small. And then I went to Clarendon College, which is also small in the Texas Panhandle, before I went to Texas Tech and then graduated there with my management degree. So while at Texas Tech, I started a job at the Federal Aviation Administration, one of my favorite jobs ever, as an admin, and I loved it. And I had a great mentor there that got me interested in HR. And so from there, I took an HR manager role at another aviation company for a little bit of time. It was kind of a mess, and then went into the recruiting world for about 2 years. So I worked for Robert Half International. Actually, we started their office in Amarillo. They had never had an office there before. So that was quite an experience for a while. And then I got my first job at Cal Farley's Boys Ranch. It's a residential childcare facility in the Texas Panhandle. And I worked there for a total of 12 years. So I started as an HR specialist, went to HRIS manager, then actually flipped over into the operations side for about 4 years and was the director of operations support there. And then our VP of HR retired actually, and I stepped into the VP of HR role, and I was there for about 5 or 6 years. So loved it, learned so much during my time at Cal Farley's, which I'm sure I'll talk about a little bit more. And while I was there, I went back to tech and got my master's degree. So I just loved that time there. And then from there, I took kind of a side road and worked for an HR technology company, led their HR implementation team for a bit. And then about 3 years ago, I started work at Jack Henry. Started as an HR business partner, manager, and then now, a couple of steps later, I'm head of their HR operations. So analytics, compliance, our shared services, which is our first line of contact for associates to the HR team, performance, communication, all that fun stuff is what I do for.
Man, you have done a lot. Oh my gosh. There is so much there. I want to start. I want to go back. I want to go back. By the way, my daughter went to Texas Tech, so guns up.
Go Red Raiders. Yeah.
And Justin Dorsey, of course, you mentioned his dad. He was
Yeah.
fantastic. Hey, I want to ask you though. You said when you were at this aviation job, that was one of your funnest jobs ever. What made it so fun?
It was the people. I'm all about the people normally, but it was just, I was in college and they kind of just took me in as like their daughter. And so I just learned a ton. That was mostly men that work there, which I work really well with. So they let me fly a plane. I mean, what could be more fun than that? It was kind of crazy.
Okay, wait a minute. You mean you were in the passenger seat,
Yes.
had your hands on the control? That's scary.
Well, actually, they made me sit on my hands because you don't take off using the steering wheel. You have to do it with just your feet. And so I took off. We flew around Lubbock. They didn't let me land though, because that's where he crashed.
Oh my! I did not know that story. That is fantastic. Oh my gosh!
Yeah. But I had a phenomenal mentor there that she just taught me a lot about people and process. They let me experiment. They let me train. So, I'm young, 20 years old, and they let me just kind of do a lot of different things and learn about what I wanted to do. So,
you don't realize how valuable that experience is whenever you're that age. You're just trying to figure things out, right? Find your lane, as I like to say. One of the things that you also mentioned, and I'm going to go back to that job and that mentor in just a second. But one of the things you said, you also started a division for Robert Half. And of course, I'm familiar with Robert Half recruiting, but where I want to go there is, you started the division. Like, what was that like?
It was crazy. So, of course, in the Texas Panhandle, nobody knows what Robert Half is. And so it was a lot of sales, to be honest with you. So we were trying to just get the office off the ground, going and talking to a lot of companies. And then, of course, at the same time, trying to get candidates to come and work for us. So it was I say I was there for 2 years and I felt like I was there for 10. It was hard work. Really, really hard. I think recruiting is hard work anyway, but it was just a lot of negotiating, a lot of talking with businesses and sales, and but it was hard, but it was good. Great experience.
Yeah. The key there is the experience. Being in on the ground, boots on the ground, in the middle of it, leading that. That's the best way to get experience. And a lot of people don't get that opportunity. Hey, I want to go back to your funnest job ever. You mentioned there was a mentor, and I always love to talk about mentors, people who have helped us get to where we're going. Obviously, here today, you're an HR leader, but you didn't start out as an HR leader. So you had people that helped you. Can you talk a little bit about those people and maybe how they helped?
Yeah. So, I've had so many people, mentors, champions, whatever what you want to call them, throughout my lifetime. And, that first one there, she really just kind of helped me discover like what it is that I wanted to do, and, kind of what my strengths were, and put those to use, and allowed me to do them. Like, so she didn't hold me back to, no, this is your job description and you have to do this because that's what it says. She took what I was good at and then let me go and do it, which was really, really nice. And so I learned that from a real young age in my career. And then since then, I felt like, it's all about kind of trying to determine like what it is, where do I want to be in 5 years? And then what things do I need to learn along the way? And then what people around me are fabulous at that, and then having those conversations with them. So a lot of people that have mentored me over the years, of course, don't even know it probably, but it's just a matter of just a huge collaborator. So having those conversations, noticing that somebody's good at something, and then being humble enough to go and say, hey, can you talk me through that and help me to get better at it as well? And so that's what I've just always done, and just working through that my whole life. Yeah.
I love that. Oh my gosh. Being humble and being willing to go, just take that leap of faith and ask that question. I tell people all the time that people really want to help you if they just know how. Most of us don't know how to help unless you say, hey, I want to learn more about this. And then most people are willing to jump in, aren't they?
Oh yeah. I tell people all the time, my kids, everybody I work with, like, all you have to do is ask. And sometimes people say no, and that's okay, right? But you just have to ask. And most of the time, people are more than willing to help you.
Yeah, no question at all. And then of course, I think you were, when I met you, you were actually at Cal Farley's.
Yeah.
And so that's an interesting story there too. Before we get into leadership, I mean, you spent 12 years there. I mean, that seems like a lifetime. I mean, back, 30, 40 years ago, I mean, people were expected to stay at companies for a long time, but today 12 years is a long time, but you started and you just kind of worked yourself through and then became the VP of HR.
I did.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So you had a lot of experience there as well.
I did, and I had a great champion there too. So I ended up working for the chief operating officer, which he wasn't that at the time that I started working with him. But throughout the years, he realized things that I was good at, and then he developed jobs for me to do them. And so it was just a period of 12 years really that I worked with him. And I ended up, of course, as the VP of HR reporting to the CEO, but he was still my champion through the whole time. And Cal Farley's is just a special place anyway. And it's a company that helps you. They're strength based. And so everything that they do is focused on helping people to be better, whether it's the kids that they serve or the employees that help with those kids. And so it was just a great place to grow up in my career, I guess, over
Yeah.
12 years.
No, that's fantastic. Let's talk leadership 2021. And one of the things I do like to ask, I love hearing different perspectives on what leadership means to my guests. And so if someone says, "Hey, Holly, what is leadership to you?" How would you define it?
I love Brene Brown's definition of leadership. I don't know if you've heard it, but basically she says a leader is someone who takes responsibility for finding the potential in people and processes, and then has the courage to develop that potential. And for me, that's all it is. It's having that intention and care and courage to do what's right, even when it's hard, and help other people to grow.
Yeah, I'm a big Brene Brown fan. I mean,
Me
come
too.
on. She's so fantastic. I love it. So what I love about that statement there is the last sentence is having the courage to develop their potential, right?
Mhm.
And one of the things that I noticed that on your LinkedIn profile, on your tagline, it says you like to talk about certain things. You said I like talks about networking, people first, but then you also say growth and development. I would love to talk more about that growth and development.
Yeah.
And what is that like whenever you're able to develop someone? Like, how does that make you feel?
Yeah, no, I think that's what it's all about. And I feel like as a leader, it's all about helping other people to grow and learn. And we went through the mindset book. I'm sure that you've read that before too, where you either have a growth mindset or a fixed mindset. And of course you can develop into the growth mindset. And I think it's just all about helping people realize where they are on that spectrum, and then helping them to realize that, hey, we don't have to be fixed in this little box or this one path that you have in your head. You can actually develop into something else. And you just have to have that growth mindset. So a lot of times it's just helping people to get that paradigm shift of what that looks like.
One of the I was sharing recently. I just finished writing a book. It's coming out in October to kind of
Awesome.
mirror this podcast called Life and Leadership Lane. And one of the chapters is called It's Growth Day. And like for me, this is growth day for me. I'm having a conversation with you, a purposeful conversation, and I'm going to grow from this conversation. And I always like to ask about that. Like, do you have a growth day? I'm going to use the word culture, but spirit, growth day culture at your current organization. A lot of people call it also learning and development, professional development,
Yeah.
leadership development.
Yeah, we do. We have, well, yeah, I think a couple of different ways, but we have a leadership development program that's focused on, helping a group of people move into that next level. And so during COVID, we did something really cool. We kind of transitioned that to a virtual leader labs, and they had a focus. So one of them was a focus just on women in leadership. We have a full leadership development program that we have done for several years, and so we have those alumni too, which we go to for feedback and it's just they're a phenomenal group of people. But we're developing a virtual leader lab that's coming up that's going to be focused on managers that are managing remote teams for the first time. And so trying to walk through what that perspective is and how you need to change your management style to fit that different kind of workplace environment. So yeah, we have a huge growth mindset at our company.
Speaking of remote, I'm curious, obviously, here we are, we're recording in July. We're going to play this in August, second half of 2021. And of course, it's been such a heavy time the last, 15, 16 months.
Yeah.
And I'm just curious, have you found that you've changed your leadership approach in any way?
I feel like there's been such a different focus on being intentional about asking people how they are. So
Mm.
whether you're talking about that holistic wellness, financial, mental, physical wellness overall, and just being intentional about stopping and saying, hey, let's not jump into the meeting. Let's stop and have a conversation. How are you? How can I support you? And I did that anyway. And I think a lot of our leaders did, but I think it's a matter of just being way more intentional about that and just making sure that your people know that you truly care about them and you want to know how they are. Yeah.
I love that. Oh man, I absolutely, and I've heard some different variations of that, but I think the key word that you used that I've heard most is being more intentional. When you're in the office, you basically, get up from your office and go across the hall and may be able to, ask a question or whatever, but the workplace environments that we're in, and there are a lot of people at work, but there's a lot of people remote too. And it's about being intentional to just check-ins. And so I love what you said. Marissa Carrillo was on the show last season.
I love her.
Oh my goodness. She is awesome. And she was talking about the importance of check-ins. And so when you said that, I was just sitting there thinking about that. Hey, let me ask you a question. I was reading, and I cannot remember where I was reading it, but it had to do with talent intelligence.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just wondering, I wanted to ask you, what is talent intelligence?
So I'm sure you've heard of business intelligence, right?
Yes, right.
Yeah. So talent intelligence kind of connects all the, human capital, HR, whatever you want to call it, disciplines together. So recruiting, learning, performance, development, compensation, all those things. And then you take a holistic view to identify any gaps that there are. So of course you can do that with analytics, you can do that with different metrics, but it's a matter of taking that full holistic view and then looking for the gaps and then determining how do we communicate these gaps to the business or to our leaders, and then how do we work together to put together the right metrics, the right data, the right analytics to help them understand and see that visual of it, and then how do we help them tie that to business strategy and fix those gaps. So it's like kind of a whole compilation of all those things together.
Yeah, just seeing the big picture for sure. Do you think that, one of the terms I'm hearing a lot is around data analytics, right? And how this is just, it's, I'm not going to say the future, but that's more important today than ever. Are you seeing that as well? Is that leadership? Is that really a big focus on leadership when they're trying to gauge and find those gaps?
I think it is. And I think a lot of times our leaders need help understanding why we care about the data, right? And so, and the other thing is there's so much data and there's so many metrics. And so like we have dashboards that there's hundreds and hundreds of different metrics on there. And so that's overwhelming. And you have to be able as an HR team to take that data and take those metrics and say, okay, here's the trends that I see, here's what's important, because you can't throw all that at your leaders. And, they're just, they have too much other stuff to mess with than to be able to look at 100 different metrics. And so it's a matter of there's too much, you can have too many metrics, right? You only need to boil it down to what's most important, like what it is that we need to look at. And then how can we get predictive in the future of saying, okay, so here's what this is telling us. What might this tell us in the future? And that's the whole, like, we've been working for probably 2 years, 3 years on our strategy around strategic analytics. And first we had to build the foundation, right? So you have to actually make sure the data is good and clean and accurate. And then you build the models around it. But then now our next step is trying to figure out, now how do we get to that predictive piece? How do we say, okay, here's our turnover, but what is making the turnover happen? Is it our engagement scores, and what about those engagement scores? So how does that all fit together, and how can we prevent this turnover in the future? So it's a matter of getting more predictive. So that's what we're working on right now.
I love how you shared that this isn't happening like in a day or a week. I think you said over a couple of years you've been working on this,
Yeah.
number one. And then number two, I heard you're trying to figure out, number one, you want to know why, like, why is that happening? And what does that outcome need to look like? So I appreciate you sharing that, because, somebody's listening right now and said, hey, we're working on that. We need to do better in that area. This is going to help them as well. If somebody wanted to like when you started, I'm just curious, how did you start? Did you just say, hey, we need to figure out a baseline, or we need to figure out some framework around putting together this model?
So we went to our leaders and said, what do you feel like is most important? And we gave them some parameters around, like, when you're thinking through your business strategy, what do you think, related to talent, related to people, is most important to focus on? Is it recruiting? Is it retaining talent? Is it our benefits? Is it compensation? Like and so we gave them a survey basically where they went through and they kind of rated, like, what do you feel in your specific business unit is most important? And then we took that and then put together some metrics that would match that. And so now we're in the process, and we already have a dashboard that has a lot of information, but now we're in the process of saying, okay, these are the things that our leaders told us are most important. And then this is what we're going to put together as a scorecard so they can see, okay, this is where we start. But first, before you do any of that, you have to make sure your data is good.
Mm.
It has to be clean. It has to be, concise. And then you have to have a good person that knows data. Like, I'm a geek. I love metrics. I love data, but I am not an analyst. And so you have to have somebody that's good, that can come in and run the models and do the things and make sure that it's clean.
Oh,
So.
that's so good. I'm glad you said that too, because we are overwhelmed with data. And so I love how you're talking about, hey, first of all, you got to figure out what you want, and then you got to make sure you have good data. Hey, I want to ask, and I'm not sure if this fits in there, but performance management. I mean, I hear so many mixed signals around performance management. I just wanted to ask you, I mean, is that overrated? Do you have performance management in your organization? What are your thoughts around performance management?
This is the biggest question, right? The biggest debate ever. No, I think performance management is hard. We've gone through at Cal Farley's actually. We did a group, and they came and they totally revamped our performance management around strength-based, because I told you they were a strength-based company. And so we did that. So we stopped the rating. We made it focused on goals. And so we kind of done something similar to that at Jack Henry as well, where we're not doing the 1 through 10 rating, right? It's really focused on your targets or your goals and whether or not you accomplish those. And then at Jack Henry, we have what we call a leadership framework. So we rate people on things like talent builder, whether they're strategic, whether they're good advisors to people, results producer, if they're a good self-developer, that's really important, innovator, collaborator, if they're customer centric. And so we have all of those things that we have a nice little shield that houses all of our different leadership framework areas there. And so we've included that as part of our performance management also. So, I mean, performance management is hard, right? People need feedback. And so whatever that looks like, whether it's the monthly check-ins or the quarterly check-ins or the annual appraisal, in some way you have to figure out a way to give your people feedback. And so that's super important. I think determining the best way to do that is all about what your company focuses on and how they kind of want to handle that system.
Yeah, I love that because it's almost like it's custom, right? It's
Hmm.
tailored to the person you're talking to. It's just like we talk a lot in our company about how uh, we need to kind of stay away from like the buzzwords of the moving industry and try to relay it to the person that we're talking to, right? And so I think that if you can do it, it sounds to me like if you can tailor it or custom and do it the right way and help the person see it from their a different lens, then it can be more effective.
Yeah, it has to be of value to them. And they have to know that you care about their performance and you
Mm.
care about their growth and you care about them as a person. And I think overall that's the bottom line, right? They have to know that you care about them and their growth. And then from there, yeah, I think it's just a matter of how, as a company, do you want to support that? What are your values? And making sure that you're tying your values and your leadership framework like we have, or whatever it is, strength based at Cal Farley's, whatever it is, so that you can make sure that that aligns with your performance system.
I love that. I once heard, or I might have read it in a book, but the football coach Lou Holtz, he always talked about whenever you go up and talk to someone, they're always sizing you up with these questions. And the first question is, "Can I trust you?"
Mhm.
And the second question is, "Are you committed to helping me in my position?" And the third question is, "Do you care about me?"
Yeah.
And as you said that just now, is like, that's really what they want to know. Do you really care about my performance and development? Hey, I want to ask you, since we're talking about that, one of the chapters I have in my book also is about developing influence with the C-suite.
Mm.
And I always like to get perspective around, like, how do you develop influence, or even for our listeners, how do you develop influence? I mean, obviously you went to the leadership team and said, "Hey, what do you want? We're going to try to build this for you." And then you bring it but how do you build that? Like, how do you develop that influence?
So I think influence, especially from an HR perspective or just in general, is all about relationship. And so it's about having those conversations with somebody, understanding what they do, like understand the business, understand what matters, and then you tie whatever you're doing, whether you're in HR, it doesn't even matter, right? Related to how can you support that effort and what does that look like moving forward? So in my opinion, it's about how do we get things done and how do we move things to the next level? But you can't understand that if you don't have that relationship and don't have a knowledge of the business and what it is that you're talking about.
That's fantastic. I love that. It all starts with relationships. It all starts with building trust.
Mhm.
That's so good. Oh my goodness. Hey, for all those listeners right now, you need to have out your pen and taking notes because there's so much here. Hey, I do want to ask you. I mean, you're pretty driven. I'm curious what drives you.
You know, I think that the biggest thing that drives me is helping people feel safe and find their purpose and belonging. So at Cal Farley's, we had what they call a model of leadership and service. And in the middle is safety. Because if,
Mm.
if people aren't safe, and they use that to take care of the kids and then also the staff, right? But if they're not safe and they don't trust you, then they can't grow. But then on the outside, they have things like purpose and belonging and achievement and connection, and then they surround it with fun, right? Because you got to have, or actually it's adventure in their model, but we call it fun. And so I think for me it's finding a way to help people understand, number one, to feel safe, and then number two, to know how they find their purpose, to know how they find that belonging and connection so that they can grow.
Oh my goodness, that is so good. So since you mentioned purpose, I do want to ask you that question.
Yeah.
Like I kind of use the phrase "find your lane, your calling, your purpose." When in your career, like early on, you found the best job ever, then you had the greatest experience at Cal Farley's. Here you are enjoying what you're doing now. Like, what was there a moment when you said, "Man, I found it. I love what I do, and now I can help others find their purpose."
I think it comes back to fully embracing that model that I just told you about, the model of leadership and service. So understanding like, how can I be a part of helping people to feel safe and then to grow and learn? And I think that just going through that process of understanding like truly what does strength-based mean and how do we help people to be better, and not focusing on the weaknesses. And so I think it's just a matter of kind of that whole process of understanding, oh, this is how I fit in, and this is how I help other people be better.
That is so good.
Yeah.
I know there's some people out there right now that are taking notes that are going to get a lot out of this. And so I appreciate you sharing that. Hey, I want to shift over to, you talk about leading your team. I want to talk about leading Holly. And I would love to know, like, do you have like a practice is there something you do every day that helps you keep you on track as a leader?
Yeah, so I love to be active. I know I do Camp Gladiator. We're gonna get you there someday, Bruce, for sure.
Yes, I know.
And so I get up. I love our Camp Gladiator community. It's awesome. And so I get up and be active. Get some quiet time. I do like to take some time, especially in the morning, to just kind of get my thoughts and get my day focused. I read a great book. I don't know if you've read it, by Dan Pink, called When. And
Mm,
so he goes through a process where you take a little survey and determine like, when are you best at focus? And so for me, that's between about 10 a.m. and 2 p.m., where I can like put my my full brain to focus on whatever it is. And so I save anything that I know that I need to spend some good thinking time on for that period of time. And so when I plan out my day, I think, okay, what can I make sure that I'm doing during that time? And then the rest of the time I do emails and all those things that I don't have to have my full brain for. But yeah, so I take some time and really focus on that, and then go through my day.
oh my goodness. That is so, okay. So When, When, by
Yeah.
Dan Pink. I'll put
Yeah,
that
it's
in the show
good.
notes. Oh my gosh.
Good one.
I
Yeah.
have not read that. I will be, I will be ordering that. I'm going to get that. That sounds so good.
Yeah,
Hey,
because I've always wondered, why do I lose my brain at like 3 or 4 o'clock? Like I can't get it back. And then your brain comes back later on, but it's just like the time that you think, okay, this is the time I need to go take a walk, or, walk around and get my brain back.
yeah, I'm with you. I get up very early in the morning and work out, and there's a time in the morning where that's where I try to get my eat that frog, right? I try to get the toughest things done, because I can be very focused, from like 8 to 11. And then after
Mhm.
that, whoa, you never know. I mean, I'm in the relocation industry.
Yeah.
Every day is a different day. So anyway, hey, I want to ask you, before we pivot to it's time to accelerate, I would love to ask if you've ever been given any advice you've given some incredible advice today, but any advice anybody ever shared with you that like it was so good, you just have always found yourself sharing it with others?
My current boss, Tiffany, I love this, and she says it all the time, but she always says, we can do hard things together.
Mm,
And so just thinking through, like, we can do hard things, and then really to just care about people first. I'm all about people first, do what's right, and that's enough. Yeah.
I love that. We can do hard things together. That is so good. I love that. Hey, I want to ask you also. You are, and I don't want to forget about that. You are the 2021 Dallas HR president.
I am.
Like, so first question I have is like, what is volunteer leadership? What does that mean to you? And how important, because obviously you've been doing that for a long time, with even before Dallas HR.
The HR community in general is so important to me. It's just been such a joyous part of my life and my career. It's been great, like from when I started on the board at Panhandle and then joined Texas SHRM as a district director. I was there for 5 years. You took my district. And
Sorry
then,
about that.
yeah, no, it's good. And then now being part of Dallas HR. And I think it's such a good group of people, and building those connections has been so beneficial to me as a person, and having that connection that I can just reach out to pretty much anyone that I've met over the past 12 years and say, hey, I have an issue, and here I know somebody in Houston that can help me with that, or whatever it is. And so I think it's just a matter of just having that good, strong group of people has been amazing. Such a joy.
Yeah, no, it's terrific. And I was just kidding about the district director. You set that up just perfect for me. And I'm so grateful for that. Hey, I want to ask you this question, and that is this: for someone that's listening right now that says, yeah, I've heard of Dallas HR, or I'm not sure what Dallas HR is. Can you share just who is Dallas HR and how you serve your members? And what someone could do to get involved.
Yeah, absolutely. So Dallas HR is an organization that really just supports HR professionals around the Dallas area. And so we have amazing education events. We have networking events that you can grow and learn. I think that one of the biggest ways that you can actually connect with other HR professionals is volunteering as part of Dallas HR. So there's lots of different committees. You can help with community relations or with membership or education. All Collin County, we have a Collin County member area so that you can get involved. And I think being on those committees and those smaller groups, and really that is the way that you develop those relationships with other people and get to know them. So it's a little bit harder when you just go to an education event and talk to somebody for 5 minutes. But no, I think that Dallas HR is here to support the HR community. And so it's a great place. You can go online, dallashr.org. You can check out our education events, our networking events, and get involved.
Yeah, I will say that I'm right there with you. You can go to an event and you can meet a few people, or you can volunteer and become friends with many people for life, right? And so I appreciate you sharing that. Now, Dallas HR, here we are in the second half of 2021, now having some live events once
Finally,
again.
yes, in
Yes.
July. And we have HR Southwest coming up in October. Very excited. It's going to be hybrid, so it'll be great.
Yep. HR Southwest, one of the largest regional HR conferences in the country.
Yeah.
Excited about that. I'm definitely excited about that as well. And so I appreciate your leadership and leading Dallas HR. And I'll put some information in the show notes. If somebody wants to connect with you and learn more about that, they can certainly do that, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, for sure. Oh my gosh, this has been so good. I really appreciate you sharing this and just continuing to lead in not only both your company but Dallas HR. Hey, I want to shift to it's time to accelerate and just ask you some fun questions. And I know that you mentioned a book earlier, but would you rather read a book or would you rather listen to a podcast? Podcast.
I'm so impatient. And so I will listen to a podcast. And then if they mention a book and it sounds amazing, then I'll read the book. But yeah, podcast first. Yeah.
I'm right there with you, just like this podcast. I'm going to go order that book. So any podcasts in particular that you like to listen to?
Oh, of yours, of course. I also listen to Brene Brown's Dare to Lead. Oh my gosh, I have so many of them. Yeah. I'm also into true crime. So I listen to some true crime podcasts, which I love. Anatomy of Murder. That's a really good one.
What is it?
Anatomy of Murder.
Anatomy of Murder. You know, I will tell you that of all of the responses, crime podcasts are definitely leading the pack.
Isn't it crazy?
Yes. Oh my gosh. And then was there one? I think I saw you listen to one episode At the Table or.
Oh, I love At the Table. Yeah, that's Patrick Lencioni.
Oh, yeah, Lencioni.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh my gosh, that is so good. Yes, love that. Love that. Thanks for sharing that. Yeah. You know, it has been a tough time, not only for you know, everybody going through what we've gone through the last 16 months, but even you as a volunteer leader trying to continue to keep everybody engaged during these tough times. I do like to ask, so like, what are you grateful for?
Well, I am grateful for Jesus for saving me a long time ago. I'm thankful for my family, my husband, my life, my health, laughter, helping people to grow and learn. So many things. I could just go on and on.
Yeah. One of the chapters I have in my book is great leaders are grateful leaders. And I really think that we find the things to be grateful for, even during the most challenging times. So I appreciate you sharing that. Hey, so I mentioned our live events coming up, and what are you like? What are you most excited about here at the second half of 2021 and going into 2022?
I'm excited. I feel like over the last 18 months, we've had time to rest and focus that we haven't had before. And I'm just excited to take just the realization of how important rest and focus is and move
Mm,
it forward. Because I
mm,
think we just all kind of forgot about it. And it's so easy to just fall back into the busyness of life
yeah.
and forget how important it is to think and rest and focus.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. I'm really glad you said that because there are a lot of people, and I talk to a lot of people. Speaking of even Dallas HR, trying to get them out to a luncheon, and they're just so busy, 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 busy. And
Mhm.
I'm like, listen, you have to find time to have that, your quiet time, your me time, time
Yeah.
to network, right? Time to I call it charge the human battery, that rest
Yeah.
time, right? So that's
Yeah.
so important. I
We
appreciate that.
started no meeting Fridays at our company. Well, in the HR area.
Okay. So what is that all about?
Basically where we just block Fridays to have that self-development time and that focus time and thinking time. So that doesn't mean that we don't meet with leaders, right, of the business, but
Right.
as far as like HR goes, we have no meeting Friday, which
Oh
has been
man.
amazing,
You
really
know,
nice.
I want to mention this just real quick. I also, because you mentioned the No Meeting Friday, give you a chance to do some your own personal development. I think that's so important. You had on here that you've done some LinkedIn learning classes. I'm just wondering, have you found value in that? I've noticed more
Yeah.
and more people have done that, and then one of the ones that I saw on here was executive presence on video calls. I was
Mhm.
just curious. Number one is, did you enjoy the LinkedIn learning? And number two, um, did that help you on the executive presence? I just thought that was a very appealing topic.
Yeah, it was actually really great. I love LinkedIn Learning. We do it a lot at our company. We actually had a self-development day for our HR team where we just all focused on learning for the whole day, and we gave some suggestions. But yeah, no, the executive presence, it was very good. It helps you to understand like when you can look at the screen and look at somebody's eyes compared to when you need to be looking at the camera and what the difference is there. And it just kind of talking through like how many people and what the topic is and how you adjust your presence for that. So yeah, really good.
Okay, folks, for
Highly
all you
recommend.
all you listening right now, you're going to have to watch the video because Holly is like focused. I can see your eyes going to the camera, then looking at
Yep.
me.
And my
That is
notes.
so good.
Yep.
That is so fantastic. Oh man, I'm gonna have to check that one out. I saw the topic when I was looking at your profile, and I was like, I'm gonna have to ask her about that. That's so
Yeah, it's a good
good.
one. And it's short. It's only like 30 minutes. So
Yeah,
totally worth
yeah,
it.
yeah. You're very energetic. I know that you're very passionate about the HR community. I know you talked a little bit about your fitness. What else energizes you in your everyday?
It's totally cliche for an HR person, but I'm going to say people, like being around people. I think
Yeah.
during COVID, I think it was just so hard, even virtually. I mean, you talk to people all day, but actually being able to see people and talk with them is I just know that I need that in my extroverted self to be able to feel energized. And so that's a huge deal for me. Yeah.
Oh man, I love that. I am energized by people too. And I will say that I've had quite a few people say that people energize them. And so I get it. Hey, I have one. I told you the time was going to fly by.
I
And
know.
so I
Mhm.
have one last question, but it's one of my favorite questions to ask. And I want to ask you, Holly, 10 years older, right? Think about your 10-year older self, and she's knocking at your door, and you're going to go answer that door. What is she going to tell you?
Such a good question. I would say relax and enjoy the adventure. And remember that you are enough. My boss tells me that all the time. You are enough.
Mm, you are
Mhm.
enough. I think a lot of people needed to hear that message. So I appreciate you sharing that. Man, Holly, I mean, I've always known you've been driving in the leadership lane, and I just want to say thank you for sharing your wisdom and perspective today. Hey, if somebody wants to connect with you and learn more about you, maybe some of the things that you're doing in your organization, or wants to learn more about Dallas HR, how's the best way for them to connect?
Probably LinkedIn. So look
Okay.
me up, Holly Novak,
Yep.
LinkedIn. send me a message. Love to chat.
Yep. Awesome. Well, I appreciate you again coming onto the show. I
Thank you.
had you on my list. I'm like, I have to get her on the show.
Been a pleasure.
And today, I mean, you shared some incredible tips and strategies, and I think that's going to help a lot of people. So for that, I say thank you, and I appreciate your friendship so much.
Thank you.
All right. I cannot wait to share this. I'll talk to you later.